So I'm in the car once again talking to my phone because it's a good time to talk to my phone. But I had a really great question from a friend of mine. This is same person I was talking about in my last video. So, part of me wants to just call this talking to Mike, because Mike and I were talking and I felt like there was too much to say in a text, and a Marco Polo would have gotten long, and why don't I just put it in a video, because I think it's useful information for anybody. So why not? I guess just to give a brief, overview of what we're talking about. Mike and I are going through some similar processes of self-development and working through some of the tougher issues that we've had through our lives with body image and being athletes and athletic and fitness professionals, which is a world of its own to some degree. At least with self-imposed elements of it, but that's neither here nor there. It's another topic anyway. But he was saying to me, he's having the experience of looking at his goals with his training, specifically with his weightlifting, how vitality becomes, or how did I adjust to making vitality my goal with working out instead of making it a heavier weight every time. And I think that's a really fleeting experience that we can have with what we want, because it's something that you can have a grasp on in a moment, where ultimately vitality has to do with feeling well. It has to do with feeling strong, feeling that sense of well-being. And for me, movement so much has to do with that feeling of, joy in your skin, that buzz that happens when you're moving and you just feel good. You're lifting something heavy and you feel strong, you're stretching and you feel released. All of those things add to just feeling good, one way or the other. And I like that all of those things make me feel good in different ways. And being somebody who does a lot of different kinds of physical activity, they all tend to contribute to my well-being in different ways. And I think it's a really interesting sort of dichotomy where sometimes the opposite thing that we want to achieve, we have to experience the polar opposite. So like a lot of the times at the end of lifting, I start to feel weak, even though I'm strength training. When I'm working with martial arts and self-defense, empowering myself for protection, but I often feel vulnerable when I'm in that situation. Oh, the Domino's guy. That guy just moved into town. It's a guilty pleasure. I'll get that for my birthday once in a while, or if I'm staying in a seedy motel off the interstate on a road trip. Don't tell anyone. But, the idea of being performance driven is great. If you have a sport that you're aiming for, with weightlifting, it's a different kind of sport, especially when you're on a competitive level. Your progress slows down considerably when you're at those higher levels. You're looking at, instead of beginner gains where you're just adding 10, 20 pounds to something almost every week, or 5 pounds, whatever, versus, plateauing at an enormous deadlift, say, you're pulling 600 some odd pounds and it takes you 8 months, it takes you 2 years to get to 615. That's a very different kind of world. So that kind of performance, that kind of training, it's a very specific kind of strength training. You have to love what you're doing there. If you're athlete and you're training for your sport, you've got your performance there, you've got that goal there. If you're training for aesthetics, and this is kind of the area that Mike and I dance around because we have these sort of histories of body dysmorphic disorder, just low self-esteem, low body image, things of that nature. So, trying to shift, training to look great, because let's face it, no matter how much I train, I'll never be good enough, because that doesn't exist, because I've created this idea of perfection that, no matter how close I am, it's never enough. So then I might switch it to performance, and for me, that started off as strength training, but that came with a price that didn't make sense to me. There was so much cognitive dissonance where I wanted two things that competed with each other. Lifting to lift the higher number came with that feeling of being beat up a lot, of pain management, of injury management, which is something that if you are a serious competitor is part of your routine, is part of your schedule, it's part of your sport, is to just manage all of those things, which I think can be very exhilarating for some people. And, if that's your jam, cool. We can talk about process. For me, it made me feel like I was beating myself up for not wanting to have an aesthetic goal. So for me, I was trying to replace the aesthetic goal with a performance goal that I didn't really care about. And that performance goal made me feel physically unwell. In my past, and even, with something else like abstract, I can talk about that too, where I danced for a long time. I was a gymnast and a diver before I was a martial artist. All of those things came before heavy weightlifting. Yoga was supplemental to all of that since I was about 12. So I had a big history with all of those kinds of movements. And it's kind of like, it kind of made me feel like I was flying. I felt this freedom. I felt this energy, this sort of, it's just like a free feeling, kind of just a liberating moment. You know what? It's just like that scene in Billy Elliot when he's going to audition for the school, and he talks about, I'm no spoilers because that movie came out like 40,000 years ago, but it's just like that passionate, that freedom, that energy connecting me to everything. And I wanted to feel that all the time, and those are the kinds of things that I felt so easily and freely when I was younger, that I just don't tap into that easily anymore. And it's like, how can I achieve all of those elements? So I think it was kind of, at first it was like these fleeting moments of, I want to feel well. And there was a couple of moments like that here and there with the lifting where, take some heavy pulls, and I would feel like this great thing. But, stuff like that, doing doubles, singles, triples, I felt beat up a lot of the time. And for me personally, the recovery and the management didn't outweigh the joys of those shorter moments. I like to work out a lot. I like to feel my body in movement a lot. And I like to be able to do things like my yoga. I like to be able to do things like, dance, like my Qigong movements, like, just feeling myself go. So that became my top priority, is feeling well, and how does my movement make me feel well. And I think that the different kinds of movements I do make me feel well in different ways. and adds to my happiness. And it's one of those things where, like, it really depends on the day. Can I wake up and be like, my goal for today is to make myself feel good and well? And these days I can tap into that more often than not, which is great. That's a big step in the right direction. And I think it's a sign of the work that I've started and that I'm leaning towards. And you know, I think it is more of a byproduct of letting go of certain things, like I'm using strength as a supplement for feeling bad about myself. I recognize that the aesthetic goals weren't healthy for me. I think they're fine for some people, but I have a very heavy history of disordered eating, of body dysmorphia, low self-esteem, all of that. It's just not a good choice for me. And I replaced it with, I'm going to be super strong, I'm going to accomplish X, Y, Z. But that wasn't a personal passion of mine either. I almost feel swollen with fucking rainbows and joy when I think about those moments that I actually feel that freedom and I feel that connection with everything. And I want that. I'd rather chase that because it seems like a really valuable thing to chase. It seems to make me more valuable to people around me, which I think is helpful to them and to me. It makes me feel good. Makes me feel good that I'm helping them. Makes me feel good that I'm being a good part of all of this. Not so sure how I feel about this like wobbly camera. This could be a problem, but I could probably find a solution for that. You know, shake cam. But yeah, I think that is the process, is the ongoing reminder of, I just want to feel good. Why do I want to let myself feel mad at myself? Why do I want to let myself put myself down and be angry and all of those things? So I think that's what it is. You know, I think that's the adjustment. And it's not like a switch that turns on and off overnight. Like, I go back and forth all the time. But I just try to remind myself that all the things that I do that I know is helpful for me ultimately just makes me feel better at the end of the day. All of it. And I still lift. Every so often I feel like going heavy, and I do when I feel like it. And I have to manage my recovery after that. And I do. I have some injury stuff. I'm no spring chicken so far as that goes. But ooh, this is unusual for people to be here. But you know, that's kind of what we're looking at. So yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit. I want to know about your journey and what your thoughts are on all of this. So Mike, hit me up, shoot me a video, or leave some comments, or whatever you want to do. You know where to find me, and we'll just keep this conversation going. I take it. All right, lates.